Tonight, the second round of these NBA playoffs tips off with a Western Conference matchup of the 2 seed Denver Nuggets versus the 3 seed Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm excited to break down these second round matchups, and I'm going to do it a little different than I did the first round. In the first round, where I tried to just do 1 minute on each series, I want to go a little more in depth on these series because the start of each matchup is a little more spread out, and there's just more to break down in these series. And so for this one, I want to start by talking about what each team did in the previous round. And I'm still going to try to move pretty briskly through this, so I won't touch on everything. But I will say that I got the Wolves versus the Suns very wrong. I predicted that Phoenix would win in 6, and I did that because the Suns had dominated the regular season matchup. It seemed like they were built to go against this Timberwolves team with their shot creation and their mid-range snipers in Booker and Durant and Beal. Instead, I should have stuck with my analysis that I gave in a different series, I think, that size tends to win out in the playoffs. I think I said that in the Bucks and Pacers preview. And I look at last year's playoffs with the Nuggets and the Lakers and the success they had. And this series actually reminds me a lot of the Lakers versus the Warriors series from last year. I predicted the Warriors would win that one for much the same reason that I thought the Suns would win this one. And then what happened was the Lakers just overwhelmed them with size and physicality. And that's what Minnesota did. And as I was watching the Phoenix Suns, I was really struck by the fact that that series was evidence that point guards still matter in the NBA. And all throughout the year, the Suns were adamant they did not need to add a point guard because it was just taking the ball out of the hands of their scorers, and they had enough playmaking on the floor. But while I think that that statement is true, they've got enough playmakers on the floor. There is a difference between a playmaker and what a real point guard does. A playmaker asks guys to spread the floor for them, go stand on the weak side, stand in the corner, because I'm going to create, and if the defense bends to take away what I'm doing, I will find the open man. That's what a playmaker does. A point guard comes down and they say, I am not looking to create for myself. What I need is for you guys to get in your right spots and then run actions, run some screens. Let's get you guys where you're comfortable with the ball so that you can be successful. And you really see this evidenced with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was not happy with how he was used in this offense. And the way that he was used was as a floor stretcher for Booker or for Beal. They would say, go down the weak side because teams have to respect you. You're Kevin Durant. And then I'll try to create. And if they're dumb enough to leave you, we'll kick it to you. And if not, then I have space to create. And that seems good on paper, but there you've got Kevin Durant just standing on the weak side going, I'm a decoy unless the defense moves, and then you're going to give me the ball here, which is not where I want the ball. KD wants to get the ball in the mid-range, kind of elbow extended, and he wants to work from there with his beautiful mid-range game. He can turn and drive a little bit. He can make plays. That's what KD wants to do. The big question is that the best way for an NBA offense to run right now? Should an NBA offense be looking to get KD those spots there? Maybe the fault is actually that KD should just be doing what they used him as. He should be the floor spacer because he's really good at it. He's a great catch-and-shoot player, and then if teams don't rotate off of him, it creates space for his teammates. I don't know, but the bottom line is it was a really tough situation for Coach Frank Vogel. I don't think that another coach would have done anything radically different that could have given them more success, yet I still expect him to be the fall guy because there's not much else they can do with the roster. And that's what NBA teams do. When they need to mix something up because it's clearly not working and you can't change anything with your stars and you can't really do much with the roster, you change the coach. And so I expect Frank Vogel to be out, new guy to come in and try to do some miracle, which I don't expect to have much more success in years going forward. For Minnesota, here's what I was really struck by. First off, obviously the antithesis of Phoenix. They had Mike Conley. That was a big difference in this series. Mike Conley is a real point guard. He's one of the last of the true real point guards who will notice things like, where do guys want the ball? Who hasn't had a good shot in a while? How do I keep everybody involved and happy? And then when he has to, he can also score a little bit. He's not prime Mike Conley anymore, but just his intelligence alone, his ability to captain this team made a big difference. And then Anthony Edwards. I have always thought, watching Anthony Edwards, here's a guy with tremendous talent, with star power, incredibly fun to watch. Not yet quite a guy that I trust with the ball in his hands. Not quite yet a high IQ player. What I noticed in this series was Ant's really maturing. I trusted him a lot more with the ball in his hands. He was doing a lot of smart things. The first and most notable thing is that he was just getting rid of the ball quickly. That's one thing that a lot of young scorers struggle with is they'll hold the ball too long looking to create. as soon as the defense would start to shift toward him, he would just get rid of the ball. And then he was patient looking for a shot. And then, of course, when it comes time that they have to have a shot, he's an incredible tough shot maker. So I was really impressed with Anthony Edwards. And then Jaden McDaniels. He was inconsistent on offense. You expect that. But there was a couple games where he scored, I think he had 18 in one game. He had 25 in game 2. And when Jaden McDaniels is scoring, man, are the Minnesota Timberwolves tough. Now let's talk about the Nuggets and their win over the Lakers. I correctly predicted this one would be a Nuggets win in 5. I don't feel like I deserve a lot of credit for that. That was a much easier pick than the Wolves and Sun pick, which I got wrong. For the Lakers, they've already gotten rid of Darvin Ham. This is much like what I said with Frank Vogel. When something goes wrong, you're not going to change the stars to the top. The easiest thing to change is the coaches. Now, am I going to say that I've watched so much Lakers, I know that Darvin Ham is a great coach? No, that's not the case. When I watch the Lakers, I'm like kind of, whatever. But I always feel that way about LeBron James teams because teams are always going to play the way that LeBron James wants. And I'd never seen a coach that I thought ruined a LeBron James team. I'm not saying it's LeBron's fault either, but I've never seen a coach ruin LeBron James teams because they still play the way that LeBron James wants to play. And all I can think is there any chance that this Lakers team is better next year? Because this year, you got a healthy LeBron and AD. AD is almost never healthy. LeBron is going to be 40 years old next season. And they got a good D'Angelo Russell season. Most people thought they signed him just to trade him, and then they couldn't trade him, but he ended up being really good and shooting the lights out. I mean, I don't know where this team gets better. Now, that said, I do think that the Lakers could have had more playoff success if they had just had any other matchup other than the Nuggets. Maybe they could have even gotten back to a Western Conference Finals. And how different would we feel about this team if they made it to a Western Conference Finals and then lost in 5 to the Nuggets? Would we be saying, well, they're still pretty close? Would Darvin Ham still have a job? But I guess that just goes back to you need to have more success in the regular season so you don't put yourself in the position where you're playing the Nuggets in a 7-2 matchup. But again, that goes back to, are they going to have more regular season success next year? Are they going to get more games out of LeBron and AD or even equal? Is D'Angelo Russell going to be as good? Is anybody else going to be better to make them more than a 7 seed? I don't know. For the Nuggets, I got to say, they didn't look like the most inspired team in that round, and you can expect that sometimes. Defending champion team, first round, they just kind of want to get to the games that they know are really going to matter. And I think they just knew they were going to beat this Lakers team. A lot's been made about the fact that the Lakers led for like 75% of the minutes in this series. And I think a lot of that is just because the Nuggets were like, yep, we know when we get to the end, we're just going to like kick it into gear and we're going to win this game. Michael Porter Jr., let's talk about him for a minute because a lot of people have said things in the past like, man, he's a 6'10 Klay Thompson. And I never thought that was a good comparison. I've never once watched Michael Porter Jr. and thought, that is one of the most beautiful looking shots I've ever seen, like I do with Klay Thompson. He's never been the two-way player that Klay Thompson is. And so I'm like, yeah, the really what you're saying is he's 6'10 and likes to chuck threes. But that said, when he's hitting, not just threes, but his pull-up jumper like he was in some of the games of the series, it's impossible to stop. And if he's got it rolling offensively, you add that to Jokic and Murray, this Nuggets team is close to unbeatable. Let's talk about Murray. Murray is up there. He's becoming up there with Jimmy Butler in terms of how much scarier they are in the playoffs than the regular season. If you're listing out the best point guards in the NBA during the regular season, I don't know where Jamal Murray is. But he's not low, but he's probably, I don't know if he's top 5. He wasn't an all-star this year, and, because there's so many good guards to pick from. But when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to like final shots, there's not a lot scarier than Jamal Murray. He just comes up huge in big moments. That said, he hasn't been fully healthy, and I'm wondering what that's going to look like in this next series if he's not fully healthy. And then lastly, Jokic. Jokic is still just the best player in the world. I think what's most underrated about him is how incredible his hands are. Watching him go up against a big Lakers team, anytime a ball is coming to a traffic area for a rebound, it just feels like if his hands are near the ball, he grabs the ball. It doesn't matter who else is around. Incredible hands. They're just like magnets for the ball. And that's a big reason why the Lakers couldn't beat the Nuggets, because Jokic just dominates around the basket, grabbing rebounds, and then that soft touch to finish. All right. To the series that we're actually here to talk about, the one that really matters going forward, the Nuggets versus the Timberwolves. The thing I'm most interested about with this is the matchups. So for Minnesota, my guess is that they put Conley on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, that they put Ant on Michael Porter Jr., they put McDaniels on Murray to have some size on him and try to slow him down that way. Cat on Jokic, Gobert on Anthony Gordon. Now, there's a big question there is maybe they go more traditional. Maybe they put Cat on Aaron Gordon, and they put Gobert on Jokic. But I'm guessing they do it the other way so that Gobert can be more of the roaming help side shot blocker. And if they do that, then the question is, how does Denver counter? If I were the coach, I would have AG doing a lot of weak side screening for shooters, screen for KCP, screen for MPJ, and then Gobert has to make the choice. Do I come out and help on these screens, or do I stay back? If I don't come out and help, they might be getting their shooters some wide open shots. If I do come out and help, there's no longer that help side shot blocker. So just something to be looking for. For Denver, I'm guessing that they're a little more traditional at the point of attack. I'm guessing they put Murray on Conley. I'm guessing that KCP is going to guard Ant. By the way, KCP is just one of my favorite role players in the NBA. I love the fact that he's just a smart, dependable defender who can hit threes. I mean, that's what you want out of your 3-and-D wing guy. I'm guessing they put Michael Porter Jr. on McDaniels, Aaron Gordon on Cat, and Jokic on Gobert. Now, they might mix it up a little bit by doing something like putting Jokic on McDaniels and just daring McDaniels to be the guy who's going to beat them. But I don't know. There's, like I said, they may be a little scared that McDaniels gets hot like he did in Game 2 of the previous series. So maybe they try it. If he hits a couple shots, they switch out of that matchup. I don't know. Both teams are likely to target the other team's point guard. They're both really big teams across the board, except for they both have regular kind of small size point guards. And so my guess is there'll be a lot of pick and roll action to try to get their scores on the other team's point guards, especially trying to get Jamal Murray to defend because he is the smallest person on the court for Denver, and he's been hurt, and they just want to wear him down and take away his legs for the end of games. So I'm looking for a lot of Minnesota trying to get Murray matched on to Ant, trying to get him maybe even switched on to Cat, and just beat up on Murray. The last thing I want to talk about is the benches in this matchup. Both teams really heavily rely on their starters. In fact, if you look at bench scoring for the season, the regular season, the Nuggets ranked 28th in bench points this year. The Wolves were 24th. So both these teams near the bottom of the league and as far as bench scoring. That said, the Wolves have sixth man of the year, Naz Reid. He didn't have a great series the last series. Maybe he can bounce back and have a much better series in this game. I'm not sure who the Nuggets are going to trust most off the bench in their series. But in any case, I expect this to be a really close series. My prediction is that the Nuggets will win in 7. I think this might even be the kind of series where it's a home team wins every game type of series. And that's not because neither team can win on the road. But I could just see the Nuggets coming out, taking care of business on their home floor the first 2 games. Everybody being like, it's kind of disappointing. I was really hoping the Wolves would have a much better series. And then they go back home, kind of new to them, still a lot of young guys on the team, home crowd, get pumped, steal 2 back, and then, just kind of a back and forth like that. That's how I see this series playing out. In any case, I think it's going to be a really exciting series, even if it ends in less than 7. I bet each game will be competitive. Remember this, after last year's playoffs, so many people in the Nuggets organization said, what was actually sort of the toughest series was our first round series against Minnesota. And Minnesota didn't even have Jaden McDaniels or Naz Reid in that series. So Minnesota has been looking forward to this rematch at full health and the advances in maturity that they've had from star Anthony Edwards. This is going to be one exciting series.